This is our first lecture in section 2.3. The objectives of this section are integers and the real number lines revisited, opposites, absolute values, adding real numbers, using the number line and using rules, and real life and real numbers to model. So first of all, let's just get going on the introduction. So first of all, remember that integers are a subset of the real numbers, and the ones that we're going to be incorporating the most are fractions, but we'll also get into a couple of decimals, which are all real numbers. So first off, recall that the integers are basically the whole numbers and their opposites, and an opposite is a number on the number line that is on the opposite side of 0 from the number under discussion. If we want to discuss the whole numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3, which are the positive numbers and 0. Positive numbers, remember, are another way of saying natural. They're the counting numbers. They're the things that we use to count things, and we don't use 0 to count things. So when we see the number 1, although we don't use the positive sign, it does represent a positive number. And the negative numbers are what we will be using in adding the whole numbers to get the set of integers. So the negative numbers are the same as the positive numbers, but they have a negative sign attached to them because they're on the opposite side of 0. And the negative numbers, as I said, are located on the opposite side. So if I have positive 1 is 1 unit to the right of 0, and negative 1 is 1 unit to the left of 0. So we see 0 here, 1 unit to the right. That is a positive 1. And then 1 unit to the left, that one is a negative 1, and that's what we mean by that. And positive 2, it's positive 2 units to the right, so here, and negative 2 is located 2 units to the left of 0, a negative 2. So we have a negative direction this way, and then we have a positive direction in moving in this way. And those are our different ways of discussing on a number line how we move about. So recall that the integers look like this set of numbers. They are a set that is a subset. They are contained within all of the real numbers. And what we just discussed over here also kind of leads us back to that idea of the order principle of the real numbers. That as we move to the right on the number line, we get bigger and bigger, more and more positive. As we move this way, larger numbers. And that's an idea that leads to addition, right? When you add two things, you get more and more of them. And then when we move this way, we get more and more negative, which comes to an idea of subtraction, because as we move to the left, we get smaller and smaller. And we know that when we subtract things, we get smaller and smaller quantities. So let's just kind of look at real life situations in terms of integers and how we could describe real life situations using some integers. So my checking account had $54 in it, and I wrote a check for $55, which left me overdrawn by $1. Overdrawn by $1 is an English way of saying, or in terms of English, saying that you have less money than you actually have. And in math, we use a negative sign to represent that. So it's a negative $1. If I go to the Mojave Desert, certain parts are below sea level. Below sea level is an English way of saying negative numbers. So for instance, if I have a 27 feet below sea level, with math, I say a negative 27 feet, and that's how we can represent those. Now, if I go to northern Alaska in the wintertime, the temperature is more than likely below freezing. So if we want to talk about the temperature on the Celsius scale, 0 being freezing, if it's 17 degrees below freezing on the Celsius scale, I can then say instead of below 0, right, or below freezing, I can add that negative number there. So that's the idea of integers and how we can use them to represent real quantities in the real world. Our next discussion is going to be on opposites, which are also sometimes called an additive inverse, and we should be able to continue on to the idea of an absolute value. So that'll be in the next lecture.